Oh,
In this episode, we're talking about a film that kind of came and went upon its release, but garnered a wide and loyal fan base after its seemingly constant screening on cable TV. The film is The Shawshank Redemption. Stay with us. Welcome, friends, to the 3324 podcast. Eric, last episode of the year. Last episode of 2022.
Couldn't pick a better topic to talk about to end the year on.
Than prison and life sentences?
Yeah, why not?
Is that what this year's been like for you? Feels like a life sentence of
you know
doing these
what?
episodes?
You know, as we mentioned in Nightmare Before Christmas, right? You know, how Christmas is always, got those kinds of themes running, right? I mean,
Fair enough.
You know, we go back and we examine what we did during the year, what we didn't do during the year. It's,
Okay, so you're going to repent for any crimes you may have committed that you didn't get caught for. That's what I'm getting from this. Perhaps this is tying up the year for you so well. But thank you, everybody that has joined us throughout 2022. We have certainly appreciate it. It's always a lot of fun. And we've got a lot of guests for our final episode of the year. And we've got a debut guest as well. So we've been trying to, let me start with this gentleman. We've been trying to get him on for a while. It actually took me like finding his address, going to his house, sitting outside a car, waiting for him to leave, and then approaching him in person to finally say, Ray Fry, welcome to the 3324 podcast.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited to be here. I'm sorry it took so long, but finally
That's okay.
here.
Worth the wait. The final episode.
Pleasure to have you, sir. Pleasure to have you. More the merrier.
Thank you very much.
The initial requester of this episode, Ms. Kelly Coober, is the one that actually is the founder of the feast, as it were, for this episode. She's been wanting to talk about Shawshank for a while, and we've been trying to get it on the schedule, and I'm glad that we were able to get it in this year. So welcome aboard, Kelly.
Thank you.
Hello.
Pleasure.
Hello.
And of course, in the center square, Mr. Mr. Sean Grady.
Back by popular demand.
Oh, yeah, very popular demand.
Always a pleasure, sir. Always.
Glad to be here as always.
Welcome aboard, Sean. Thank you for helping us close out 2022. Although our podcast year doesn't end until February, so we are not on we're on what's it called, a fiscal calendar. We're not on a regular calendar year. We go fiscally. So season 3 will not start until February. Just a little PSA. Episode numbers won't change. You really won't know that there's a third season, but in our minds, we're starting a third season.
That's right. Yep.
So we decided to do it yearly. I almost wanted to take the Eric. I don't know if we discussed this. I thought about as an homage to Star Trek was making our seasons as long as however many episodes there were in the first season of the original Star Trek. I think it was like 26,
30.
Or 30. I was thinking about making our seasons that long in honor of the original Star Trek, but too much math.
Okay, well,
I can't keep track.
That's yeah, sure. I mean, if that's what we could talk about it.
Well, we're already doing it. We're already doing it year by year. So it would really be wild if we just started making the seasons shorter and like, oh my God, they've been going for 10 years. Because
I see what you're. Okay, I see where you're going with this. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Season
shorter, a new season will start during the same year. That's okay. Okay. Yeah, we could do more. Summer hiatus, and then we come back in the fall, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that how TV shows used to do it back in the day?
Yeah, but no one's going to listen to our reruns. We could have Lucille Ball come in and do like a best of retrospective from the set of the 3324 podcast, like she did for Three's Company. So.
Okay. There you go.
Anyway, let's get on to business. We're here to talk about the Shawshank Redemption. Okay. A much beloved film that kind of didn't get its legs until it took a while for this film. Although we're going to go through the stats and it kind of betrays that a little bit. But I think for the public at large, when it came out, it was kind of missed. So this was released on September 10th of 1994, written by Stephen King, based on his short story, Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption. Directed by Frank Darabont. A $25 million budget, and a $73 million box office. So that's actually really not bad for this type of a film, for the length of this film, and for the kind of the art. In '94, this is kind of that still that artsy, kind of, these kinds of films were still like out there. I don't think 75 million was all that bad for a $25 million investment. With Tim Robbins certainly wasn't a marquee name. Morgan Freeman wasn't a marquee name. He's a great actor, but there was no marquee name actors in this.
True.
Right. So
and the title.
No one knew what the hell this movie was about.
The title was very off-putting, I think, too. But then you had titles like Hudsucker Proxy and things like that too, like that. Which again,
and the poster didn't help. It's just a picture of the two guys, like their faces, wearing caps.
Well, no, the actual poster was the one behind Kelly there. I think that was the original.
Okay, so is that about Jesus?
What is this? Is it a Christian movie? But then people found out that it was about a prison, and then they're like, well, yeah, okay, what? We don't see the draw.
Yeah,
and
what
of
is
course,
it?
Thanks to home video and word of mouth, and the fact that it got nominated for 7 Academy Awards, which didn't win any. There you
go. That was my next stat.
Yeah,
nominated for 7.
7 and didn't win
0. Zip. That's like one of the biggest shutouts. Yeah, one of the biggest shutouts in like Oscar history. Nominated for 7 and didn't even get the crumbs, didn't even get the dust of an Oscar or so.
And even then, people were probably like, what is that movie? I could just see people sitting at the Oscars that year and being like, I didn't see that. I never even heard of that. And
it did get mixed reviews. As many people loved it, though. It was a little, old-timey, a little unrealistic for what it was. But let's jump into this. Ray, what is your connection? What did you see this when it came out into theaters, or when did this kind of ingratiate itself into your life?
You know what? I'll be honest. I don't know how I definitely didn't see it in the theater.
Mm-hmm.
I come from a movie and TV family, so I'm sure someone in my family probably said, "Oh, you got to watch the Shawshank Redemption," and then I definitely bought it on DVD, and then just loved the film after seeing it, and I, watched it so many times. Now how many times it's on TV or it's on Netflix or whatever it's on, I always watch it. It could be 5 minutes to the end, and I'll still finish it.
Yeah, as Sean Grady calls it, it's a remote drop. It's one of those ones when you flipping through and it's on TNT, you just put the remote down wherever it is, right? You're gonna pick it up from where, just like Goodfellas, and there's a handful of other films that if it's on, no matter where it is, you're gonna ramp up emotionally and catch up to where it is. So, Kelly, what about you? What's the deal with you and the Shawshank Redemption anyway?
So I was in high school, and I had this boyfriend, and he was a huge Stephen King fan. And he honestly, one of our dates was he sat me down and made me read a Stephen King book. So that was like, okay. So he's
wait.
Yes.
That's a date.
That was a date? Oh, that sounds like an assignment.
It was a date night. Okay. I'm obviously
that sounds like an assignment. Like, in order for us to have a date number 2, you need to read this.
Right.
And then write a 5-page report.
Yeah. So you can imagine my excitement when he says, we're going to see this Stephen King movie. And I'm like, okay. That, I never looked away from that. I was so enthralled with this movie the entire time. And when we left, I was like, thank you. I firmly believe like people you meet in your life are for a reason. Mm-hmm. He was in my life for this movie, to bring me this movie. Right. And it was so phenomenal. Like I left there and I was just like blown away. And then all I could talk about was this movie, and people didn't get it because I was in high school. There was like, people were like, whatever, this, because to your point, like old timey, like people weren't getting it until they saw it. And then, so that's where I came to it. Is I was not interested in seeing it at all. I was kind of like, oh, okay, I'll see it. Just like, okay, I'll read this book. And when I saw it, I was just so enthralled with it, and I, love it.
Cool. Yeah. Mr. Grady.
I don't think I saw it in the theater. I definitely remember seeing like in my living room, probably on VHS or cable. But it's funny when I rewatched this, I watched it twice again the last 2 days. Once with my wife, who watched it in its entirety for the first time. I don't remember the beginning. I think that's the second time I've seen the beginning, because when I catch it, again, it's the remote drop. Like, is it in the middle? Yeah. I'm like, I didn't remember any of it. that beginning. I'm like, I think I've seen the beginning once, and now twice, and now 3 times, but I've seen the movie probably 25 times.
Yeah.
That's wild.
But only the beginning, like in it 3 times. Cause again, you watch it wherever it is and you pick it up, you can't put it down. You can't stop. But I loved it. For the first time I saw it, I was blown away by it. Definitely. I share Kelly's.
Eric, did you see it in the theater?
I did not. Yeah. Kelly's, I think Kelly might be the only I don't know about you, Dean, but no, I saw it actually the following year. I didn't see it until it came out. Well, I think it was starting to gain popularity through video rental, and I think my mom rented it, and we were, we were over the house, and she's like, "You need to watch this movie," and we watched it together, and I honestly, I wasn't interested either. I was like, what is this? Because we were, Forrest Gump had come out, and that was the movie of the year, and then of course the Pulp Fiction as well, Leon the Professional. Again, another, it was a pretty good year for movies, and I was like, what is this thing? It's like, seems kind of boring, and I watched it, and again, like Sean, I was blown away by it, and the more I watch it, the more I love it. It's just, and Kelly and I we kind of revisited like every year. I think we watch it at least once a year,
At least,
so we have that on physical media. So
I think the fact that 4 out of 5 of us did not see it in the theater, I think speaks to exactly what was going on with this film. Is that I don't remember. I don't even remember when I saw it. I certainly didn't see it the next year that it came out. It was certainly a while after, and maybe it was Netflix. No, definitely before Netflix. It wasn't that long, but it was one of those ones. Yeah, it seemed like an epic film, or back in '94. Yeah, we were still all, Eric and I still going to see films in the theater, still checking that stuff out. And yeah, you had Reservoir Dogs in '92, and you had all this great stuff that was going on. So this film kind of came, and if people are looking at it based on a Stephen King story, they're going to think it's something else, right? Because if and I think that's how, and they didn't really promote it that way. They didn't promote it like Stephen King's Christine or Stephen King, like Stephen King's It or any of those other properties that he has. Just like Stand By Me wasn't promoted as a Stephen King, it was based on a Stephen King story, The Body, but it wasn't like Stephen King's Stand By Me. So you kind of have this weird property by an author who's known for horror stories, who's well known for horror stories, but he writes these other types of dramatic type fiction, and that chooses to get adapted. So it's like, okay, can we promote it as a Stephen King film? No, because it's not for the horror audience. So then if we can't, what is this based on? It's based on something, but so it was hard. I could see where it was kind of hard to find its niche.
Yeah,
at that point, but it got 7 award nominations. So people were paying attention to, the people that saw it were enthralled with Morgan Freeman's performance, and the few people that did see it kind of got what it was. But I guess unlike something like Titanic, the word of mouth just didn't do anything for it. I don't remember. Yeah, like you said, Eric, Forrest Gump was taking up all the air. Yeah, in '94. I mean, it was Forrest Gump from the moment that movie came out, because of the groundbreaking effects, what they were doing. He was traveling through different periods of time, and then Tom Hanks's performance. It really did overshadow everything. Had Forrest Gump not come out, this might have been it could have been a contender.
Could have been, but then you also had Pulp Fiction for the alternative crowd. That was that was the different movie. That was the special movie. Nobody had ever seen anything like that, because of the fractured storytelling in that. And this
harkens back to Hollywood, right? So it harkens back to like those old time jail films, like The Birdman of Alcatraz and that kind of stuff, and you make a really good point, Eric, where movies were getting more daring, and in the 90s there was that renaissance of up and coming filmmakers like Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez and some of these other ones that we talk about. And then along comes this one, which is kind of very rooted in some of that old style, not even like Escape from Alcatraz, like the Clint Eastwood, but Birdman of Alcatraz with Burt Lancaster, like those older prison films, a little more
it was a period movie.
Yeah, and that's where it kind of it got knocked a little bit of, it's not really, it didn't really deal with the nit and grit. Ray, did you think that bothered you a little bit? Like one of the criticisms about this film is that all these guys are in jail for something, but in jail they all seem like they're good guys, right? All the prisoners are likable, right? They're kind of, murderers. What are you in for? But they all seem like they're really likable guys. Now there's a point to that, but is that something you were thinking about when you were watching it, or?
It's funny you should say that. Before this went on tonight, I'm thinking, you know what? You do like these guys. You kind of root for them, but then you're like, wait a second, they're in prison for a reason. They committed crimes.
Yeah.
But in some ways, you kind of like them, and you kind of like, you hope eventually Red or Tim Robbins and Andy, you hope that they get out of jail, and it's like obviously he was innocent, but you kind of get to know these guys a little bit more, and then you like them, but even though they are criminals.
Now, the reason why we like them, Kelly, is because the good guys are even worse, right? The wardens, the guards, there's different in this movie. There's different level. Like the prisoners are supposed to be the worst of the worst. If you ever watched Oz, that was on HBO. It's like that is like it's shocking. It's scary. It's like I don't ever want to go to jail. Mm-hmm. But in Shawshank, they kind of flip it where the prisoners are more sympathetic because they're put against, the antagonist is the warden and of course, the incredible Clancy Brown as Byron Hadley. So do you think that's why they're more sympathetic characters, because there's a bigger evil?
Yeah, they had to. And also it was driving home that idea that they have become institutionalized. They've become a part of this, and they're acting like a community, not like people who are, I think in jails where they're just there a short time versus the prisons, you start to build up this, okay, well, I'm here, I'm going to make the most of it, I'm going to make these friends. And obviously there's other factions of the prison that aren't the good, aren't in any way likable, but the core group, they become friends because they feel like, this is their community now.
That's a really interesting notion, Sean, that Kelly brings up, is like the fact that these guys are in there for so long that maybe they do become rehabilitated within the place that they're in, right? Like Kelly said, there is this one core group of guys, and they all kind of seem to look out for each other. They kind of get along. There's not really any fights. It's just kind of like they're all kind of, you really used a really great word, Kelly, which I didn't think about, which was community. Like they've made their own like little tribe. Sean, do you think that kind of helps set this up too, to make these characters a little more sympathetic?
Yeah, absolutely. And Red's line is that the walls, you need them, and then you depend on them, and you can't live without them. And we see that when Brooks gets, like, he doesn't want to leave. Because they built something. They are somebody. They become somebody in their community, in this community, which is prison. Yeah. And if they leave, then they're nobody, and then they don't have anything. And how are they going to function? Because they're institutionalized. And I thought the same thing when you said about the good guys, like the prison guards and the warden are the worst criminals, they can be criminals because of whatever circumstances they had in their life. And these guys, not with the exception of Andy, obviously, just got bad luck. And Andy says, like, bad luck comes around eventually. I guess it was my turn to have bad luck. And all these guys they're there for a reason, but they're all criminal. Everybody, the only one who's not a criminal is Andy at first.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting how you're rooting for the criminals.
Do you mean Randall Stevens?
But that time that he served, he starts to blame. It starts to sort of take its toll on him in the sense that he starts to blame himself for his wife's death.
Yes.
So he feels responsible when it gets to that point, and he's almost there for 20 years. It took 20 years for that to kind of set in, and because things are so at this point dire in the film. But and all of this is a creative choice by Darabont, by the way, who did a masterful job adapting the story. The screenplay, I think, is one of the best screenplays ever written. Stephen King himself said he improved upon his story.
Has anybody read it?
There were I think
Yeah.
Kelly and I we actually
I
listened to
read
the
it.
audio book, and it was just
Yeah, that's right.
There's not much to it, and it's a
There's
little
No,
different.
it's a
not,
short
no.
story, and it's
Mhm.
different, and there's certain,
Yeah, there's not a whole lot to it, and one of the things about Stephen King is because he believes in in helping new directors and first time directors. Back in 1983, I don't know if he still does it, but his thing is he would sell the film rights or adaptation rights to a director for $1 to an up and coming director because he believed in kind of promoting that. So he worked with Darabont, I think in '83. I think Darabont developed something maybe for a Twilight Zone. Remember that reboot of the Twilight Zone? I think he developed a Stephen King short story, and he did it for $1. So Darabont was always said he was always thinking about this story and kind of working through it. And even Stephen King is like, what are you going to make? Like, I don't see it. I don't see where this is because the story is so paltry and it's different. But Stephen King has said his two favorite film adaptations of his adaptations of his work is Stand By Me and The Shawshank Redemption. Two non-horror films.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, are in the same book. They come from the same.
Oh, really?
The different seasons, which is 4 short stories. And Stand By Me is a story called The Body. And Hope Springs Eternal, which is Rita Hayworth and The Shawshank Redemption was the official title. Then there's A Pupil. And then there's another, I forget the other story.
Yeah.
A Pupil was also made into a film, which I don't think I remember seeing.
I saw it. Bryan Singer directed it with Ian McKellen and
Ian McKellen. That's right.
And what's his name? I forget his name. Brad Renfro. It was okay.
Yeah. So I mean, for whatever reason, why he Darabont chose to do this particular story, because he comes from like B movie horror. Like he wrote the screenplay to the remake of The Blob. He wrote, the third Nightmare on Elm Street, Dream Warriors. To pick this particular story, and I personally believe that he did it because he's such a fan of old classic cinema. Like he's a huge fan of Frank Capra. And I think there's a lot of Capra in this story. I think that's what in my personal, I think it's, it appealed to him in that way because it's such a tall tale in that sense where the protagonist is he goes through hell, and by the end of it, it's like he comes out of it, and it's like very much like It's a Wonderful Life or any of the these kinds of films. So I think that's what honestly appealed to him, and that's the reason why he chose to adapt this particular story above any of his like bigger horror, things. So, so it's interesting.
Yeah, and you talk about the everyman character in Andy Dufresne. Let's talk a little bit about the casting or what they were what Darabont was looking for. So, Ray, tell me if any of this kind of hits a nerve with you. But some of the original casting choices for the Andy Dufresne or the lead actor were Gene Hackman or Robert Duvall. That would definitely be an older spin on it, right? I mean, Clint Eastwood and Paul Newman also. So you're talking about an older lead character. Not sure it would work with that. Tom Cruise, Tom Hanks, or Kevin Costner, Ray? What do you think about any of those? Costner?
Maybe. Tom
Johnny
Hanks?
Depp, Nicolas Cage, Charlie Sheen?
Yeah.
I don't know about Charlie Sheen.
No.
Yeah, he's too...
Tom Hanks, maybe. Tom Cruise, maybe. Johnny Depp, yeah, because younger. I mean, they went in the right direction to choose a younger actor. If it was older, then no, I don't think that would have worked. But yeah, I think those younger guys probably would have done a good job. But Tim Robbins, like you said, he was not a well-known actor at the time, and then you see this movie, and then anyone says Tim Robbins, I go straight to Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. And it's interesting that they were looking at older actors, Kelly, because it's like, if you get an older actor, that means they've, before the movie starts, they've lived most of their life. And a lot of the themes in this film pin on just one word, hope. Right. And I don't know that an older Hackman was probably in his 50s by then, right? Or easily more, close to 60. That he's all of a sudden going to get a life sentence and then come to all these realizations after all of his stuff. So, what do you think that the casting of that main character being younger was the right way to go with it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The older, first of all, the whole relationship with his wife and stuff, that wouldn't have worked with an older actor. I don't think that you're in that passionate time of your life when you're older to warrant that, and it just wouldn't have felt honest. And maybe they would have done it in a way that they would have cast a younger actor to show those flashback scenes, and then but that would have been I can't imagine that. And I don't think that I just think of the scene where he's leaving, and how could you have had any of these older actors crawling through and coming out of this, oh, my back, No, I don't think any of that would have worked.
Well, Eastwood did an Escape from Alcatraz.
Robert Duvall would have pulled his back out after swinging that rock once.
And I think as far as Tom Hanks, I can see it now that he's done a lot of dramatic roles and stuff, but that would have been so horrible that would have come out the same time as Forrest Gump, and the comparison that would have probably tanked it completely. Well, obviously he wouldn't have been able to do both, but
Sean Costner was available though too. Costner was committed, just about to commit to Waterworld, which was a career mistake anyway.
Yeah,
but Costner in '94 was that everyman because he had done Field of Dreams, he had done JFK, so he was kind of cultivating that dramatic everyman, Henry Fonda-ish kind of character.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't. Do you see Kevin Costner getting beat up by the sisters and
back then? He was spindly back then. I don't know.
What do you think? But that wasn't his. I don't feel like that was.
No,
I feel like he was I don't know. I don't know if
too big of a star.
Maybe at the time, yeah.
Is that it, Eric? Do you think it needed someone like Tim Robbins was known? He was known for Bull Durham. He was known for a couple other things, but he wasn't giant. And do you think that kind of helped make him an everyman if he's less of an identifiable quantity?
Well, whatever it was, I mean, he has this quality about him that he has it's like Red says in the film, there's a quiet way about him, right? Costner, I think, is a little, he could be very stoic. Very, intense in his performance, his cadence. And, I just don't see that emotion, exuding from him half as much as Tim Robbins did it. And just to look at the guy's face. And by the way, this guy's he's 6'5". I mean, the guy's so big and lanky. I mean, it's just, to see him getting, raped and beat up by the sisters, and that's a shocking scene to me. I mean, he could fight them off or not. They overcame him anyway. I mean, he's bigger than they are, but yet they still managed. So that says something about how passive he is and how, that he's not used to this situation, So, I think it's a perfect casting choice. Yeah, no doubt.
And then of course this cemented the impression of Morgan Freeman. And narration, and having Morgan Freeman as the narrator kind of cemented everybody's impression of, the deep-throated Andy, type of thing. That was it. That's as far as we're going to go, Sean. So don't start counting impressions.
Andy, you nuts? Keep an eye on your mop, man.
but it, you can't. And to Kelly's point, also, Kelly was saying, well, if you had an older guy and he was married. If you had an older guy and you paired him with Morgan Freeman, Ray, that would they would be like contemporaries, right? They wouldn't be like this, because it's definitely a bromance, right? But I think the age difference kind of helps also, right? Because Andy brings that youthfulness and that sense of hope that these older convicts don't have anymore, right? Does that make a little more sense too, Ray?
Yeah, he's the new kid in the class, and he's learning, who these guys are. And the first thing I think he said to Red was, I hear that you're a man that can get things. So he's going to the older man, the more wiser man, for help with what he's eventually going to do.
Yeah.
So
good point.
Yeah, I think it's a nice. I think the age thing is a nice contrast because because all these guys are hard. They have their community. They have their clique. right? Which is very kind of, and they all feel a certain way about their prison life, and that there's, you don't think about those things, and there's no hope, and this, that, and the other thing. And then in comes this guy that just and it takes 20 years. This stuff doesn't happen overnight, but with, with his unflappable or unshakable demeanor in the face of everything, and which kind of changes it. Sean, I was thinking about this today. Is Red actually the main character in this film?
Yes.
Is he?
Yeah, I think so. I never used to think so. Like, I've watched this movie, many times from in my 20s. Now I'm not in my 20s anymore. I'm not gonna say how old I am. But anyway,
what?
I'm in the 40s. So anyway, but
wow, you gave it up pretty quick.
I don't care.
I don't care. The sisters, you don't have to give it up that quick.
Whoa, wait, whoa. Anyway. What was the question? I totally forgot now what you just said.
Okay, Kelly.
No. Morgan Freeman is the main character.
He's the main character. I think he's narrating the whole thing, and he's the one that needs the redemption in the end, right?
That's what I was getting to. Is who's redeemed in this film?
And I think my like I said, because I've watched this over the years, like, it definitely has a different impact on me as I get older, because you think about the passage of time. Red's in for 20 years, then it's 30, then it's 40. I'm like, oh my! And then Brooks had 50. It's like, and then you get the young guy coming in who wants to maybe turn his life around because he doesn't want to be in and out of prison. So you think about the passage of time and how the time just the same thing over and over again. And I think it's Red. You see the the three parole hearings, the growth of his character. Throughout, I think it's his story. I think Andy is the one that kind of moves his journey along. That's
Kelly. It's almost like his diary, right? It's almost like Red's diary of his interactions with this person, because it is, most of it is, Red's viewpoint on things, right? Yeah. Because of the amount of narration, and he's the only narrator, so it's not like they pass it back and forth and you get another point of view. It's Red is kind of taking us through from the moment that Andy arrives.
Right.
Right. And that was what I was getting. Sean got it, is who is redeemed in this film. It's Red, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's both of them. And honestly, I think even the guys that are left behind have some redemption because they learn so much from these relationships, from meeting these two guys, and and Hope, and the knowledge that Andy gives them by building the library, the culture that he brings in that they wouldn't have been exposed to, that has a redeeming quality as well. So
yeah, and there's that great scene after Andy escapes, right, Eric, where Red is narrating, but there's a scene of them in the cafeteria, and William is telling the story about when he first got there, about the beer, and they're kind of relating that. So it's more than it's the library, it's the things he did, but it's also that impact that he left. That story at this point is 20 years old. Right, 19 years old, because he'd escaped, and they were still reliving that, and that, I guess it kind of brought his whole time in jail was tied together by him escaping and kind of making good on that, right? Because that's the whole thing, is everybody has hope, but no one ever gets out, and everyone talks about it. But throughout his trials and tribulations, he stayed true to, like, that guiding star.
Absolutely.
Of your and we learn more about it. At first, they position Andy as a moron. It's like, oh, this guy's, he's like walking around, he's in a daze, he's strolling. They don't really know what to make of him. But over time, like, this kind of, like, his kind of wisdom kind of unfurls in small doses. And I think it's just it's a brilliant way to kind of, the movie's long, so it could take its time with that. They're not in a rush to make this guy out to be like the perfect thing. They kind of, he does deal with some of those, some of the things that do happen in jail, and they don't shy away from it, but they don't have to go. They don't go into it like they don't need to.
Yeah, they all had their doubts about him at first, the new fish, but I think they take such a sort of morose pleasure in the new fish that come in. I think they really do get something out of that. Like with each new person, are they going to be friends with this guy? Is he going to fit in? If not, we see what happens to the poor bastard in the beginning.
Oh,
yeah. It's a horrible scene, and it's
Fat
just
ass.
like, and you see William Sadler.
Like,
he was goading him, and he won the bet, but you could see the look on his face when he got terribly beaten. He felt like
when he found out that he died. When he found out that the next day he died.
Yeah, so these guys have been there for a while. They went through their trial, and like that community is there, so they're looking for some. I think that fresh face, that new perspective on
They're
things,
looking for
especially
entertainment. I mean,
especially somebody coming from the outside world. And somebody who is as intelligent as Andy is,
he was an oddity
himself to be.
Yeah,
exactly. So it was something that these guys, it gave some life to the place, a presence, a light in the darkness.
And he never really changed too, right? I mean, Ray, that's usually the thing is all these guys became institutionalized, right? They became so used to the routine, but Andy, no matter what happened to him, still, and again, as that whole thing unfurls, it really kind of, it really comes to a head in the scene after the music, after the Marriage of Figaro scene, right? When he comes out of solitary, and they're like, they let you, he's like, they let you take that record player down there with you. And he's like, no.
Yeah.
The music was inside, right? It's something that they can't touch. And I think he was bringing to the surface, Ray, like points that these guys probably maybe have thought of when they were younger, but it was just kind of taken out of them, right? Because then Red says that's a dangerous thing.
Yeah.
How about the fact that Boggs got 1 week for beating him with an inch of his life? He gets 2 weeks for playing music in the solitary confinement.
He showed up the warden, though. He locked the door.
I get it, but the warden is up here, and he is God.
Yeah, but the reason Boggs, though, I mean, it's like if Andy wasn't involved in this situation with the warden and doing what he was doing, like laundering the money, they wouldn't have gave a crap that Boggs beat the shit out of him. Like that. Normally, that would be just a normal occurrence.
And that's an interesting thing, right? Because Ray, it makes you think that's a turning point too, right? So Andy starts kind of is an asset that the warden can use. So that gives him a level of protection, right? And those scenes with the sisters are brutal, and it kind of comes up a lot. And then there's the scene where Boggs goes into his cell room, and Hadley is there, Clancy Brown, waiting for him. Mm-hmm. Now you're rooting for the guard. Now you're rooting for the scumbag killing guard, right, Ray? I mean, how do we square that?
In the beginning when he's a real scumbag. Yeah. But then he now he's protecting Andy because what Andy did for the guard is like, oh, all right, you took care of me, now I'm going to take care of you. It's like, now you're rooting for the guard. But then, in the same respect, he's a criminal just like everyone else is. So,
I gotta say though, the look on Boggs' face, like there's a moment where you're like, "Oh man, that sucks." But then, I was like, "How are they doing this to me? Like this guy deserves this." I'm like he has that look in his eye, it's like for a moment you're like, "Oh, that sucks for him."
That's the scene where Darabon's like. Horror movie comes out when he drags him back in. That's where it comes out. You're like, yep, that's how you direct that.
Yeah, the fingernails are dragging.
No, a little tidbit. Darabon actually wanted to throw Boggs, have Hadley throw Boggs over the railing, and he would have dropped 4 stories and died. But he didn't have time to shoot it and didn't have enough money to shoot that. So he did Jaws style. Like he just got grabbed
beat the crap out of him in the shadows.
and he gets pulled in like the shark from Jaws grabbed him out of the shot, So he had to think, those kinds of things, but to save money. But yeah, that would have been something.
But you start to think, oh, okay, these guards are okay. Like they kind of, but not really, because Hadley blows away, Gil Bellows' character, Tommy.
Yeah.
Right?
Tommy. Yep.
It lulls you into this false sense of, oh, okay, he's going to be able to manage the system. He's got protection, but no, he's protected up to a certain point. Like in the end, he's a prisoner. And he's not going to get in the way of stuff, and even the great Bob Gunton as the ward. He's like, I'll kind of placate you and let you do your little thing, like let you, write your letters and do this. But for Andy, that's a big victory. But for him, it's just like whatever. If it's going to keep him quiet, that's fine, because there's all these bigger things that are going on around him.
What does he say in the beginning? Your ass is mine.
Yeah,
right.
I own you.
Yeah,
and that's exactly what he does. He feels like he owns Andy.
I have a question for you guys. How do you guys feel about the fact that the warden is like Palpatine in Star Wars? Like why is he serving like 3 consecutive terms? Like he's there more than he should have been.
Right.
That adds. I think the actor Bob Gunton, I think he responded in kind by saying, it adds that little bit of a mythic quality to the movie. And that's what makes it kind of so he's kind of representing the Nixon character, like Nixon or even Satan at this point, because he's just doing everything that he's preaching. Like he's such a man of God, and yet he's doing the exact opposite of what.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He definitely corrupted his way into staying. Right. And because there's that great scene with the pie. Right, when he's when he's got the jail guys working on all these projects, and the guy's like, "You're gonna kill me," and he's like, "Oh, my wife baked a pie," and it's got the envelope in there.
Yeah, and when he gives it to Annie, he's like, you think he's doing a nice thing by giving, oh, do you want the rest of this? Yeah. Woman can't bake for shit.
Yeah.
Like he has to add that little tidbit at the end to remind you how much of a scumbag he is. Like,
I'm not eat, I'm like, eat this before I give it to the dog kind of thing. Right. It's like that kind of attitude.
Yeah.
It's like, I know this is really crap. So here, you can have it, but you'll enjoy it because of the level that you're at. So
right.
Yeah, so many great scenes. Let's just roll through the cast a little bit. I think we need to give most of these guys some love. So Tim Robbins obviously is Andy Dufresne. Morgan Freeman we talked about. Bob Gunton as the warden. Again, Bob Gunton is one of those character actors that you see and you don't remember where he's from and where did I see him. This is the one that he's mainly known for. William Sadler as Haywood, another character actor who was big in the 90s. William Sadler, most notably played Death in Bill and Ted, the second one.
Yeah,
he played Death. They played like Life and with the other board games. They kept beating him, like kept playing like all these weird, strange board games. Of course, we're gonna stop on the great Clancy Brown for a little bit.
Oh my goodness, yes.
As Byron Hadley, this guy, I can't even. He's a character actor, but in my mind, he's not a character actor. Clancy Brown. He's like to me. He's a cut, like whatever's in between a lead and a character actor. He's a supporting actor. He
really is. But yet I think we probably think more of him because of his, as Kurgan and Highlander, which Dean and I are huge fans of, and ever since then, and everything he's been in has been like, oh, it's elevated to that almost star status in our eyes, because he's just such a great bad guy. Like he's so menacing and
drink up ladies,
malevolent, and and he just delivers those. And even like he does a lot of voice acting too. He did a lot of voice acting, and I think he did some voicing over in Clone Wars and some like animated stuff.
Yeah, he's like Luthor in the Superman.
Yeah, but he's got that voice, that gravitas too.
Yep.
That.
And he's Mr. Krabs in SpongeBob, if you didn't know.
Yeah.
So yeah,
he's
just so great in this movie.
Anytime he shows up, Dean and I just like our eyes just get
like, there's Clancy Brown.
There's Clancy.
Clancy Brown. Because he's so underrated. But he's such a great actor, and in this thing, he really kind of brings that steely, one of the things I read is he had access to where this was filmed. They had shut the prison down a few years before, due to unsanitary or really bad conditions.
Yeah.
And he had access to the guards to interview them. And he said specifically, goes, I didn't want to interview or speak to any of these guards because I don't want people to think that that's the way these people were.
Right.
Like I wanted to build a character, like because of the history of that prison at the time and it was shut down. He's like, I didn't want to give these guys a bad name by interviewing them and then being this character. And then they would think that I got the inspiration from that. So
because he's so despicable. Yeah.
Monkey spunk.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, the way he delivers those lines is just.
Oh yeah. And you know, when the first guy gets out of the bus in the beginning and he just laces right in.
You speak English?
Stink. You speak English, but stink. Get over there. Like it's like the lines just keep coming. It's just it's so great.
Yeah, but, and just the brutality of the new guy, right? Because you say one more thing, and it's like, and they bring him out, and he just destroys the guy.
Yeah,
with the.
But I love how he's always handing his hat to the guy next to him.
Yes. He's got his lackey. He's got his the
beatdown's coming. When he hands the hat off, that means the heavy work is coming.
That's right.
He's got a hat guy who's there to hold the hat.
We got to see if he's in the credits as Hadley's hat holder.
I almost feel like the casting in this movie is almost on a you got Tim Robbins, you got Morgan Freeman are obviously the top tier, and then you got character actors like William Sadler, Clancy Brown in the second tier, who Darabont didn't work with, but then he's got this ensemble people like Jeff DeMunn, who plays the DA in the beginning. This guy has been working with Darabont in everything he's done, including Walking Dead. The first season. These like little company of players that he has, much like Capra, much like the old way of doing things, like we were just talking about. And he was very elated to have all these people, in this film, and they're just all of them are just so great, no matter what, even if it's just one line. Yeah. Another thing is it was filmed at the Ohio State Prison, and they used extras. A lot of people were out of work. They came in, they were steel workers, and that they lost their jobs, so they had this big casting call for extras. And the faces, the thing that I like to remark about is the faces that they found, and in these close-ups of, especially the scene with the opera, singers, they got, the camera pans over and you see the sea of faces, and they're so like Norman Rockwell type faces. There's so much character in all of these. It's amazing to watch. I just love it for that alone, that scene alone, just for that. It's remarkable. The casting is just spot on in this.
And speaking of a Norman Rockwell face, we need to talk about James Whitmore a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Ah, yes.
This guy will tear your heart out, Brooks. It's just like, he's kind of the guy that you would see in that 40s jailhouse movie, same type of character. And you really don't, he is such a side character until he's not. Like, you don't realize, like, he's just kind of there, and he hands the contraband over to Andy when he brings the book cart around, and just kind of, and Andy gets assigned to him to start doing the tax. But then the story of Brooks becomes quite important. It becomes a pivot point in the film. It's like Ray, what gets me is that the scene when he's got Haywood, William Sadler, right? When he finds out he's leaving, just the emotion that he conveys. Where he's saying, I don't want to go, and they're making me leave. Do you agree that that's like kind of like one of the hidden treasures of this story that you don't really see coming?
I mean, yeah, you feel bad for him because he's been in there longer than all of them, and the only way that he can stay there is that if he commits a crime or if he cuts what's his face's throat, or he's it's funny that you mentioned him because it just made me think of the line from in the movie when he goes, "Easy peasy, Japanesey." That's like something like an older guy or an old man would say, and you feel bad for him. It's like, no, he's an old guy. It's like, let him stay. Why are you going to throw him out? Into the world? Just like Andy said, or not Andy. Red said he should have died in prison because that was basically his home.
Yeah, and it really is poignant because even Andy said, he's like, it's Haywood. Look, he's bleeding. And Brooks couldn't do it. Like he's not, like you said, like Kelly said before, like he's institutionalized, but he's also part of a community. And there's that familial thing of look, it's Haywood. Like, look who you're doing this to. Like, it's not some guy, like trying to get him to realize it. And you can see like James Whitmore, like his face just kind of dropped. Like, oh my God, he's so good in this, James Whitmore. Like he was never that big. He's had a long career, but and he's always kind of been a side player. But in this film, he grabs at your heart, and then when he gets out, it's like, yeah, maybe I should get a gun and and I'll shoot the manager for free as a bonus. Like I'll hold up the grocery store and I'll shoot the manager as a bonus.
It's absolutely heartbreaking because given his age. It would be hard enough for, even if he were, if he had gotten out of prison a long time ago, it would have been that much harder for him to find a job, just given his age, but because he's an ex-con and his age, and to have him just, doing this really just nothing of a job, this menial thing, and that's his existence for the rest of his life. I mean, it's just, it's absolutely, you understand what he does. And by the way, this whole scene was not in the story at all. I mean, the character of Brooks was virtually non-existent. Darabont wrote this scene in the script. And that's one of the things that made the script better than the actual story. Yeah. And I think one of the movies that he cited, he goes, I love James Brooks and Them. In the movie Them, the B movie with the giant ants. Like that's the movie that's why he casted James Whitmore in this movie, because of that movie. I loved him in Planet of the Apes, man. He was one of the Dean?
One of the senators, right?
One of the council. Yeah.
And just that whole, he in his experiences leaving the jail, there's a lot there. Like I wake up at night and I'm afraid because I don't know where I am. I'm afraid. I'm tired of being afraid, right? Or I'm tired of being scared all the time. I mean, there's a lot in there. The world moves so fast that I don't know. Like he's a man out of time. Like Ray said, it's like, why couldn't they just leave him? Or but the only way he can do something is by committing a crime, and he's not that. Like he got caught between a rock and a hard place because he's been rehabilitated in one way.
Yeah.
Because he's not going to get a gun, and he's not going to shoot somebody because he just, but he's not able to function.
He's so far behind that. That's so far behind him. Whatever he did,
1904 he went in.
Yeah, which you assume is like, most of these guys are murderers, I would assume, or did horrible things, because. But yeah, that's so far behind him that there's no possible way he could do these things, and yet, it's just heartbreaking. Yeah,
Brooks was here. Right?
Yeah.
It's like, Jesus Christ.
What a scene. What a scene.
Oh yeah. It just kills you. And he's sitting and it's just like, you want to cry. He's like, I go to the park and feed the birds. And I hope that maybe Jake will come by and say, you die. This guy is killing me.
It absolutely. And the close-ups.
It's just simple words. This is just simple.
It's everything. Writing. Yeah, it's everything. The writing, the close-ups of his hands, his arthritic hands, feeding the birds, and it's just, oh my God.
Even when he's on the bus, the look of terror on his face when he's riding the bus,
his face just dropped.
He's he doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And how he's going to get along.
Yeah, and that's like a 5-minute probably scene. Mm-hmm. But they pack so much into this character, again, it's a guy that you didn't pay attention to. And it was just another one of the guys in the background. Probably you'd think even less of him because he's this older guy and he's probably going to, die. But, it really kind of tugs at the heart. It really kind of, I think it propels the emotion. What it does is I think it kind of ups the ante for the emotionalism. It kind of brings you to another level. Right. Yeah. So then when you're ready, when the next set of occurrences happen, it's kind of, you're already at an emotion. You're already kind of compromised emotionally as like the viewer.
Where you don't know where the story's going to go from this point.
They did it right.
Because it's just like he's just, reading the letter and then, and Andy's story continues on, but then you realize time has passed and he's been there almost 20 years. And it's like, who's next, right? Red is, you think, Red pretty much says so. Like he's the guy that's up there. Probably he's next in line. So what's going to happen there?
Yeah.
But yeah, are we bumming you out, Ray?
No. I'm
Ray's like,
Ray's very
this is just like,
I think I depressed everybody by really. I upped the melodramatic factor by going really hard on those scenes with
well, I mean, just to before we leave Brooke's character, that okay, so that took a little bit longer time, 5 minutes or whatever, to span out. But when you're first introduced to him and he asks Andy if he's going to eat the grub worm, and he looks at him like, I think he was like, where am I? What is going on? This guy's going to eat this, blah, blah, blah. And then when he sees that the bird in his pocket, he just realizes, there is humanity in here too.
Yeah.
I think that really, and then you see, it's really cool to see the time change because he's a big bird now, not just this little pocket bird. Yeah. So that's a really clever way that they transitioned that and then showed, his humanity right from the very beginning.
I'm glad Kelly brought this up because that anecdote that I was referring to, that Darabont revealed in this scene, is the ASPCA got involved. They sent a representative to the set, and you think it's because of the baby crow, that she's there to make sure that nothing happens to this crow. No, she was there for the worm. For the maggot.
Yes.
She wasn't there for the bird?
No, she was. They were not allowed to feed a live maggot to this bird. And Darabont's like, but he tried to reason with her. He said, but we bought this worm from a bait and tackle shop that anybody in America can buy to go fishing with, that they would live bait. And you're telling me that I can't feed this thing to a bird. And so no, they wouldn't allow it, and so that what you see is it's either a fake worm or it's a dead worm, but they had to prove that the worm died from natural causes and they didn't kill it.
What did they do? Scare it to death?
Yeah, like they had to prove that they didn't do any harm to this worm themselves. Yeah, he said that just blew my mind. Okay, I'm like, are you kidding me?
On the flip side, let's flip that thing, because you're saying that the ASPCA was there to protect the worm.
Yeah.
The scene when Andy goes through the pipe, not the scene when he goes through the pipe, but when he comes out of the pipe into the water, that water was all contaminated.
That's right.
It was a contaminated water area. They had to dam it up. They dammed it and they chlorinated it as best as they could, but it was still a level of contamination. And Tim Robbins is like, sometimes you got to do what you got to do, but the worm,
right, exactly.
But the worm, still living a life of luxury. I think the worm is still alive. He's like 75 pounds, and he's on Shawshank. He's on display. He's got a room there, but.
Absolutely incredible. What people, you never stop to think little things like that would be a problem. It's just crazy, but it happened apparently.
So let me go around the table with this question. We'll start with Kelly. Did this movie need a happy ending?
It didn't. They thought about leaving, but I appreciated.
Okay.
I mean, I've seen the alternate ending. I understand, and again, it was hopeful as well. So it's not like they were ever going to end it on like he goes to the gas chamber or something. You know what I mean? Like there was always going to be some kind of a uptick to the ending. But I really appreciate this ending. So I like it. I feel like it was the right choice, but I could have seen it with a different ending and still appreciated it.
Okay. Ray, what do you think? Did we need to have this buttoned up like that tightly at the end? Because there was a little more ambiguous ending, almost like the end of Good Will Hunting, where Red is just kind of going off and you don't know. Would you have been satisfied with that, or did you really need to see the because that is like we said, the redemption of Red is what this story is about. So do we need to see that fully realized?
Yes. One, because I mean, it was for Red and it was for Andy. Andy basically got screwed his entire life. He said, "You know what? You're going to screw me. I'm going to screw all of you guys." He busts out. He leaves. But then I think what makes it better is Red, who is finally released. He's redeemed, and he and Andy, they bring that friendship back together. So yes, I do believe this was meant for a happy ending.
Sean?
I don't think I needed it. And when I was watching it again and paying closer attention to it, not that I don't pay close, but for the purposes of a discussion, if you listen to it, he's on the bus and he says, "Well, I hope I cross the border, and I hope," and then it just goes to this like, there's Andy on the beach working on the boat, and then there's him walking. Like, is that in his mind? Is what he hopes happening? Or I don't think that happened. I don't think that happened. I'm thinking like
that's a good point. Yeah.
Darabont gave us, well, I guess, gave what people wanted, the happy ending, in his own way of saying, you're going to think you got your happy ending, but maybe you really didn't get your happy ending.
Wow.
Not that it's not a happy here. I'm happy that that Andy escapes and that Red gets, he's rehabilitated. They let him out. That's fine. I don't think
you're saying Red might have gotten shot at the border.
No, I don't think. Maybe he's.
No, you just changed the movie. You just changed the whole movie. Now I'm really depressed.
That's not what I'm saying.
There's no hope.
Wait a second. In the book, I think it says that Red.
I hope they get across the border, which means you're saying he might have got shot.
Hey,
I don't know.
Could have passed away on the bus in a happy dream,
right?
Exactly. I think that's part of a dream. So, like,
I should have never asked you this.
That is enough for me.
I should have never asked. I never
believe.
You should have never had that question put to you.
Sorry, I ruined it. I ruined the movie for everybody.
No, Sean makes a very good point, and that's exactly the way I think. That's exactly what I would have said. But the scene on the bus is exactly the way it's written in the story. When he says, "I hope," and it ends there. And Darabont loved that ending. He said, "That's the way I want to do it." But then they screened the movie. And they, people didn't like the way it ended. They had to tack on that ending. He saw it as a catharsis. And if you're going to sit in the, his idea was, we're putting the audience through 2 hours and 20 minutes of this story, and I think they deserve the ending. So they, it was pandering, I think, but to a certain extent. But I think I could have been satisfied emotionally. I think the movie still would have worked if had it ended with Red on the bus. You don't know what happens, but
I don't know. But that's
hope, But it's like that's the hope. Sometimes it leaves you with that feeling that hope is stronger when you don't know what's going to happen. I feel. Like that's see it happen,
But I don't think it would have closed the book on Red though. Like that was the whole point. Was Red was always doubting about hope.
True.
And that things can happen. And I think we needed to see him get to the beach because he. I hope the ocean is as blue as it is in my dreams. Like that type of thing. You're like,
yeah.
I think we needed that, but just because of everything that these characters had been put through over a span of 20 years for Andy and 40 years for Red, that last minute, it's literally probably even 45 seconds, that scene at the very end. But I think it was important to kind of close the book on it and kind of really drive home that because if you left it a mystery, but like, oh, well, Red might have been right in the end. Maybe he doesn't get across the border and he gets, they catch him or they do decide to go after him, or, and then it's kind of like, well, what did we go through this for then? Because the film wasn't.
I see your point.
It wasn't positioning itself as on a Sixth Sense like downer ending type thing. It wasn't.
But didn't you feel it was enough?
I felt better that.
But for me, it's like all the stuff with him going to the tree, and him that to me, that was for me enough of seeing Red. He's looking over his shoulder. He's out of he's there. We are there with him. And it's like, we're experiencing his freedom to a certain extent. And the hope that he gets from this situation, I think I think it lends enough there to make me believe that it's going to happen. That he's determined when he says, it's goddamn right, and he's that the look of determination on his face. I think he will make it happen.
It's nice to see. But I want to talk about something.
Sure.
In prison, when they're sitting there, and he's telling him, "Go to this tree. You're going to find this rock that has no earthly place under this tree, and you dig it up and blah blah blah." How did he know that he would get all of those things? Because that letter was written to Red, and that money was put there for Red, so it had to be after he broke out.
No, it was planned. He was planning the whole thing beforehand.
But how did Andy know that he was going to be able to get back to that tree and put that rock with that letter and all of that? Because that had to have happened.
Well, he
didn't know Red before he went into prison.
He didn't.
He couldn't have put it there before.
I think he was. It's all about hope. He was hopeful.
This is
when he remembered. I think Andy did say, didn't he say, if you ever get out of here?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it was hopeful. So
this was part of the plan. No, but this was part of the plan, though. Yeah. Andy was planning to go once he got out. He was going to go to that tree, bury the money, and that's why he wrote the letter.
He left that night. He left that night, right? Because that's when Andy walked away.
I'm just saying, it's amazing that he had all of these details.
Oh yeah, well,
that's Andy. But that's what throws you.
Yeah.
But that's what throws you in the film, because you don't know what his intentions are at this point. You're like, is he going to kill himself?
Oh, that whole scene where they're waiting for him, and he's just he looks over and he's not there. You can just imagine.
Lends the performance of Robbins right there in that scene. It just lends that tension there. It's like he's just acting so he's gone. Like he's just, his mind. You feel like he's snapped at this point. He's had it. This is his breaking point. Whatever. Like Red says it. Every man has his breaking point. The guy's acting weird. You notice he's not there with them, sitting there eating, and all this stuff. And that whole, bit with Sadler with the rope and all. It's like, oh man, what's going to happen? But it no matter how many times you see it, it's still effective. To me, that scene just still gets me. It's because of the performances and just, even though it's going to happen, it's so great to, and he had this all planned out, which makes the whole situation that much more brilliant and elevates it to that tall tale sort of status, I think. And that, but it's in that at this point, the movie is entertaining you. It's like you're waiting, now it's no longer just a character study of these guys together and the friendship. Now it's time for the action to come in. And
it's like they say, get busy living or get busy dying.
Right.
And that decision that night is really both. Going is either he's going to live or he's going to die trying, getting out of there. It's
true.
That's where he puts his money where his mouth is.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
All righty.
Yeah.
As we wind down, like we do with our movie episodes, we like to talk about some of our favorite scenes. Ray, we're springing this on you. So we're going to wait. We're going to go with Sean. Sean never
always go first. I feel like I always go first, but I will go first. That's fine. I knew this was.
You knew it was coming. You knew it was coming.
I know it's coming. And I would say that my favorite scene has changed over time, and now my favorite scene is that conversation before he leaves. There's so much packed into that scene. I'm hanging on every word, and Red's reaction to it, and just like the unknown of him not knowing what's next, what's Andy going to do, and the lead up to the spoiler alert, the escape. That's my favorite scene.
We got to bleep that out. Come on, Sean. Come on, Kelly. What do you got? Favorite scene or scenes?
My favorite's in the movie when they're watching Gilda and they, he's like, oh, hold on, I love when she does this with her hair, Yeah. But because it's just such a throwaway, can you get Rita Hayworth with me? And he's like, I don't have her down my pants at the moment. That whole conversation is phenomenal. And then you realize how important that moment is to the whole rest of it. You know what I mean? It's just kind of a throwaway. And the first time you see it, Yeah, you're like, okay, they're watching this movie, blah blah blah. You don't really put it together, but then you're like, oh my gosh, that was so important.
Yeah, and actually, I caught it today because I didn't think about it that much, and it's funny you mentioned that because he walks into the theater with his jacket on, and as soon as he finds out that he's going to get the poster, he leaves. That coincides with the scene where he chipped off the piece of plaster off the wall. So that scene happens, and then he goes right to the theater and says, "I need a poster."
Yep.
Like you don't really like you kind of like that like Kelly says, it seems like a throwaway scene, but when you and you don't see the result of it until almost at the end of the film when it shows him chipping away with the rock hammer. He right after that happened, that scene happened. He ran to the theater and said, and then he didn't stay. He left. He went back to his cell.
Yeah, that's a great observation. Yeah. And that's what this movie does. As many times you see it, it's like that you pick up on these little moments. So,
all right, Ray, the spotlight is on you. What are you got?
So I do have a couple, if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah,
you're the guest. So first time guest always gets 2 scenes.
Or more.
Obviously, when he, just comes out of that pipe, he's in the water and he's free. It's very cathartic. It's like, you feel, you feel happy for him. He busted out of jail. He got, basically screwed. He was going to stay in because of the war. And so he got his revenge and now he's free. So, that was definitely number one. And then number two, I liked when they're on the top and they're tarring the roof, and then he basically takes a chance of either getting the crap beat out of him by the guard or losing his life if he gets thrown off the roof. So he basically risks his life, and he kind of gets the guys to like him, so he, if I'll do this for you, if me and my, coworkers, can get a couple beers. And that's when he kind of first establishes the friendships with all those guys. So it's kind of like it's a nice scene.
It's a beautiful scene.
Great choice. Yep. Eric, what do you got?
Well, like
Give
Sean,
me all you got.
I watched it twice. We watched it last night, and I observed this scene, and I never noticed it before. And then when I watched it today with the commentary, Darabont pretty much confirmed it, and it was like, oh, well, that's really cool. So it's reiterating the scene when Brooks leaves the prison. The camera is facing him as he's walking out of the gate, right? And as he's saying goodbye to the guards, which pretty much says everything that needs to be said about him being institutionalized, and it's very internal, and it's like he's still there. The camera is looking at the prison when Red leaves, the camera's behind him. So the camera becomes a participant, where the camera is following Red out into the world as with the audience. So he is leaving prison. So that's a kind of a tell that his situation is not quite the same as Brooks, in the sense. You get the sense that he might actually, things might work out for him, because now we're with him. Now we're everywhere with Red. He's like, he goes through the same kind of thing, but then there's that situation with Andy, and the hope that he has only because of that letter, and because of the promise that he made to Andy. So now the camera's going with. We need to know what's going on with this. So that was so brilliant. I never noticed that before, and when I watched it last night, I saw that. I was like, that's interesting. But then Darabont said, he's like, yeah, that was done on purpose. That was intentional for it to kind of. I think that the contrast between the two.
I think that solidifies it that this is Red's story. You never see the prison again after that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
True.
Good point. Yeah.
So that's become my favorite. Ask me the same question 10 years from now.
Yeah, right.
I'll probably have a different,
absolutely.
a different scene. But
episode 527, Return to Shawshank Redemption. I'm going to go with we touched on it a little bit, or I touched on it a little bit when he comes out of the hole after playing the music. That scene kind of really hits.
Yeah.
Because he's, he really kind of comes to that realization, and he kind of verbalizes it, and everybody's like petrified. Like, he's like, haven't you ever felt that way about music? And there's things that they can't take away from you. you know, and they're all like, you're talking like, don't, you know, like that's going to get you in trouble. Like that kind of thought, that kind of thinking will make you crazy in here because there is no hope. There is none of that. And, you know, and it's almost, and just the way Tim Robbins delivered those lines, like you never felt that way about it. Like you never felt that way about music, and, you know, that it's in you. And don't you realize that, you know, there's, you know, it's something that they can't, you know, the wall, you know, outside these walls or whatever. And then the other scene is the same one as Ray, you know, drink up while it's cold, ladies. You know, the scene on the roof, you know, a man feels like more of a man when he's got you could drink a bottle of Studs, you know, and it's like, yeah, that was kind of like an early turning point, because all the members of the gang were still kind of sizing him up, you know, right there. He was still kind of hanging out with them, but not really a part of them. And even Red says it in narration. He goes, I'm not, maybe he did it to curry favor with us. But I think he did it just to feel like, you know, feel like a person again. You know, so already there's these notions of it's these little actions that can make an unbearable situation bearable, right? It's that little thing of just these guys, you know, of course Hadley had to reach into that bucket and grab one though. You know?
Yes.
Yeah. And even
the hardest screw that ever walked the floors of Shawshank. Yeah.
It's just like it's such a great scene, you know. And like Ray said, it really kind of set the tone for the rest of the film. That he would go out on a limb, but he really wasn't. He was just kind of, Andy's a thinking man, and he's a smart man, and he's just kind of trying to help, even though that's a guard. He's still trying to help people no matter who they are. So it's not like, you know, for him, there really wasn't that early. There wasn't that dividing line, right? He's like, do you think your wife will go behind your back? You know, it's like, you know, this guy's going to have an accident. This guy's going to have an accident. You know, like he's not thinking. He's still in the outside world, where he's just walking up to a guy and talking to him. And where in the case of Hadley, it'll get you killed. You know, but he's still not realizing that. But that occurrence, or that thing that he did, kind of set a whole bunch of other things into motion, right? Because then that's when the warden came to kind of check him out. Right, they tossed his cell just to kind of feel him out, see what he was about, because we might have a use for this guy. So
did he really do it though for Hadley though? I mean, or was he really legitimately trying to win favor? I mean, just to do something nice for the other inmates.
I don't think he had that knowledge of how prison works yet. I don't think he had that. I think he was still very innocent of, I can do this, you know, but he's very sharp and able to think on his feet as well, right? So he's kind of like, you know, I don't think he was thinking about that because he wasn't in that survival mode yet. Like that stuff hadn't really started happening yet. So I think it was that naivete of innocence of, you know, he's overhearing it and they're telling him stop lit, like Morgan Freeman's like, keep your eyes on your mop, and he can't help but he can't help but
with the mop, he's like, keep your eyes on your mop.
Like he's intrigued by the conversation, right? He's like eavesdropping, and he decides to walk over and says, "Hey, So I don't. He would have to be pretty lucky if he was looking for an opportunity to get under everybody's good graces. That would be a far out.
That's what's so great about this script, though. It's like that, you know, he's obviously setting up that you need to set that up so that the warden's going to get wind of that he could help him out, you know. So obviously there's a little bit of that, but it also, like you say, there's so many like different interpretations of that just that little scene.
You know, it's interesting.
So great, you know.
You guys talk about the setup. Like I noticed the pattern of 3 in so many instances. If you'll indulge me for a second, the 3, right? Yeah. 3 inmates die. Okay. Andy gives 3 acts of like gifts to the inmates: the library, the music, and the beers. Right. There's 3 posters for the women. Passage of time. Tommy gets shot, 3 shots. 3 inmates get out. There are 3 sisters that rape him. He helps like Hadley, then the other guards from other prisons. He helps the warden. It's like all these 3s, like 3 parole hearings for Red. I just keep the number 3. I keep
interesting.
Like, boom, boom, boom.
That's really cool.
It's kind of crazy. It's like 10 instances of it. I just had to get it out of my system.
Wow. There's
I don't know what that represents.
You're here for Ray fan theory number 1 for Shawshank from from Sean, the theory
Just like
of
the number
threes.
3. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe Jack White had something to do with this episode.
Could be.
That was for Eric.
Jack White.
Yeah, he's obsessed with the number 3 and things in threes. Jack White.
Jack White. Is that from the White Stripes?
Yeah, from the White Stripes. Yeah.
Well, the word obtuse, right? The only time I've ever heard of obtuse is a White Stripes song and this movie. Otherwise, it's math, right? With angles.
Okay.
Right?
Well, I think it might have something to do with
right.
the overtly Christian themes in this too. I think there's the Holy Trinity. There's that could have something to do with it.
Yeah, I mean the scene that Ray said was his favorite when he comes out is very Christ-like. Arms outstretched, getting metaphorically cleansed.
Right.
The rain, the clean rain is coming down on him and cleansing him. So there's a lot. I mean, there's so much there that we haven't even scraped the surface on.
Oh my gosh, you could.
Yeah, we could analyze.
This could be a 4-part episode.
Yeah,
but yeah,
but I think we'll tie it up here. I think we've done it. I think we've done it justice. We've covered most of the bases and we've talked about a lot of the fun stuff. So, Ray Fry, thank you so much for participating in the first of hopefully many episodes.
Yes, thank you very much. I had a good time.
You had a good time?
I did.
Did we go easy on you?
Yeah. My apologies for the delay.
That's
no problem.
Quite all right. That's quite all right.
Can I suggest something?
What the Christ is this, happy horse?
Does anyone have any favorite lines?
Yeah, anything that Clancy Brown said is a favorite line. I'm serious. I ain't gonna count to 3. I'm not even gonna count to 1. You will shut the fuck up, or I'll sing you a lullaby.
My favorite line is probably when Red says some birds weren't meant to be caged. And he's feeling sad. He's glad that he's out, but he's also sad that he lost. My friend is gone, and it's just that the emotion in the way he says it.
That whole monologue.
The whole thing is just
I miss my friend. I miss my friend.
I guess I just miss my friend.
I want to shake his hand.
Yeah.
Kelly, favorite lines? Let's do it. This is Ray has just introduced a new segment.
I don't know. I don't think in lines like you guys do. Like Eric, he can pick these lines apart. I can't think of anything. I mean, other than the typical get busy living or get busy dying. They stick out for a reason.
Yeah, well, it's a classic. Sean,
it is a great line.
Kelly, just I love. I can't quote the exact lines I like, but the one that comes to mind that I can quote really quickly is "Get busy living" or "Get busy dying." But there are so many great lines and speeches. It's hard. There's a lot of good stuff here.
Yeah,
right?
It's not as quotable as like a Goodfellas.
Right,
but it's got the lines are in there, but they kind of slip by you because you know what,
you're do them justice when you try to quote them outside of the
exactly. It'd be like, what monkey spunk? What is that? Why are you calling me monkey spunk?
Yeah, exactly.
Greg, what do you got for favorite lines?
Can I share 3 if that's possible?
Yeah,
sure.
Okay.
Go for it.
If you next time you ask, you're not going to get any. Just take. Just do it. No more asking. You're in.
One that's it's funny, but it's horrible. It's like one of those jokes where you laugh, you go, oh. So when Fat Ass goes, I want my mama, and then you hear, oh, I had your mama, she wasn't that great.
Yeah,
that's one.
Yeah.
The next one is when the sisters capture Andy and the whole thing of anything you put in my mouth, blah blah blah, and then what's the bad guy's name?
Boggs
goes, where do you get this shit? He goes, I read it. Can't you read? You ignorant fuck.
That's great. Yeah.
Right before he got his ass kicked. And then the last one is my favorite. Andy goes, had to come to prison to be a crook.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great one too. Yep.
We're all innocent here.
So many great.
What do you
mean? Yeah.
We're all innocent
I'm
here.
the only man in Shawshank. Yeah.
Lawyer fucked me. It's like it's like 10 years in, he's part of that now. When Gil Bellows' character comes in, like, what are you in for? We're all innocent here.
Hey, you know who's going to play that part? I read Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt.
Really?
Turned it down.
Yeah, that's what I saw.
Yeah, he was
Wow.
coming off of Thelma and Louise. So he was still
Yeah.
he wasn't Brad Pitt yet. You know, he wasn't at that level yet.
He was getting there though.
Yeah, he was
I
getting
think
there.
it's
Like
interesting that Darabont kept the line in though, because maybe it's because I'm Irish. Because in the
Yes.
book, he's redheaded Irishman,
Yeah.
and so they kept that line in there as a kind of he's just
wow.
messing
Yeah,
with
great
Andy
Well,
there.
he delivers it so perfect.
I
Because
wish
it's
I
my
was in a
favorite
theater
comeback.
for that line. I wish I was in a theater for that line because I think it would have brought the house down.
Oh.
Yeah, because he gives a little smirk when Andy walks
Yes.
away behind him. He's kind of like,
Yeah.
you know,
He's like,
yeah. We'll see if that you know, like he's kind of like, yeah, we'll see if that one landed. You know, like kind of like playing with him a little bit. So it's a lot of fun. If you haven't seen this movie, put on TNT right now. It's probably on.
oh my
Yeah,
goodness!
cable
I'm
TV.
so
It's
glad
pro-
we don't
it's-
have cable because it
it's
plays
in
like every day.
Yeah, it's in constant rotation, so you can't miss it. It's available for rent on Amazon Prime, HBO Max. It's on all the streaming services. So if you haven't seen it, what are you waiting for? Because
Dean, I probably bought the DVD at your store.
back in the day, I probably sold it to you.
Probably.
Yep. See that? Back in the day, I was a DVD retailer. Ray was a client.
Yes.
So yeah, you can absolutely find this one. This is one for the ages, and I'm glad that Kelly really kind of pushed for getting this one done. And I'm glad that Sean, that you're here to help us out. And of course, Mr. Ray Fry. Again, hopefully the first of many episodes with this gentleman.
Absolutely.
What a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Same here.
That's going to do it for this episode of the 3324 podcast. This is the last one for 2022. So we're going to see you next year for a whole batch of new stuff, new guests, same tired old hosts.
No.
So content beatings will continue until morale improves. So,
boy.
So for Sean, for Ray, for Kelly, and for Eric, this has been Dean asking you to please be kind and go ahead and rewind.